The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Let me hear your best lick in there, Dr. Rab. Go! Oh, that was good. That was good.
That was quick.
Your wife must love you. Darkside of the Pooch. It's time for another edition. Of course, every Monday is Darkside of the Pooch Monday, noon and 8 o'clock here with Dr. Rab Stewart from the Ross Bridge Animal Hospital at Ross Bridge Vet on Twitter, 208-0301. That's area code 205-208-0301. It is now after Christmas. How were your holidays?
Oh, they were great. You know, I just, my wife does love me. I just try not to hump any legs.
Okay, then. Well, last week we were talking about mouth-to-mouth and CPR with animals, so why not doing some humping too, man?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I don't know how COVID has affected you. I know it's affected your business, but since you're essential, it probably didn't shut you down at all. But now dogs, cats, ferrets, otters, hyenas, and white-tailed deers have now contracted the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, and in the majority of those cases, they contacted it from a human. The question today, of course, and we'll get some Mutt Mail going on here, is can you actually contract something from your pet? What's the answer?
Well, the only thing that's kind of been somewhat confirmed is there was some stuff in China early on that they think some cats could have given it to a person potentially. But there's still no evidence that says that we can get it from the animals. There's evidence that shows that they can get it from us, but not vice versa. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't happen. It just means that as of right now, it hasn't been proven. And I think the reason that that's the case is because people are just so exposed to other people. You know, I think that if you could put a person in a room where there's been nobody else and put a positive animal in there, then, you know, maybe we could figure it out. But as of right now, I guess there's no real good way to figure it out because there are so many different avenues that the person could have contracted it.
And how would animals contract it from human beings? Like just another human being getting it from spit or saliva or from food, or what would it be?
Yeah. Just from respiratory stuff, just like we do. And early on, the recommendations from the AVMA was to, if anybody in your home has COVID, to isolate your pets and have someone else feed the pet and walk the pet and, you know, whatever kind of husbandry stuff it needed. That's still probably the recommendation. But you know, that can be difficult to do. We have not seen any of COVID in pets where we are, but we do see coronavirus, but dogs and cats have gotten coronavirus for a long time. And it can cause GI problems and respiratory problems. So that's what we see, but it is not the SARS-19. It's regular coronavirus that the pets have had for decades.
Yeah, and speak about that a little bit, because when you talk about cats having had coronavirus for years ago, and a lot of people will try to make that connection between cats and, of course, obviously their owners are like, well, if it's been out there, it was only a matter of time before humans contracted this particular situation. But that's not the case, correct? And it's normally not something that's lethal, correct?
Yeah, so this coronavirus that I'm talking about in pets, that's not something that people can get. Not that form. You know, it's a similar virus, but it's not the same thing. And no, it's not deadly at all. I mean, I guess, you know, any virus, if you're immunocompromised or you have something else going on, then yeah, I mean, you know, it could be fatal, but that's just so rare and frequent. But you know, we'll diagnose a few cases every year in both dogs and cats. I mean, I think we had a cat last week that had upper respiratory symptoms So, runny nose and runny eyes, conjunctivitis, basically, and some sneezing. And we ran a PCR test on that cat, and it had coronavirus. It had mycoplasma, which is an upper respiratory bacteria, and it had something called calicivirus. And those are all viruses that most time they get over. Well, two of the three of those are viruses that they just get over themselves. The mycoplasma is a bacteria that they usually have to have an antibiotic for. But it's really not that different than you or I having the common cold. You might be down for a couple days and congested, but you come right back and it's no big deal.
Dr. Rab Stewart, Darkside of the Pooch. We do it every Monday at noon and 8. Brand new shows every single week, even during the holidays. RossBridgeVet.com. And at RossBridgeVet, of course, you can go on a Twitter account 2080301. So, and we'll leave this before we get into our Mutt Mail. They can get it, pets can get it from their owners, and pets can get it from other pets, correctly? So for the most part, right now with Omicron going on, if you want to be super safe and you're walking your dog on one side of the street and it wants to sniff another dog across the street, you shouldn't allow it to happen, correct?
Yeah, just keep them away from each other. And, they're, as I just mentioned, respiratory diseases in dogs and cats are very common, because they don't really have very good hygiene or any hygiene at all. The first thing that the dog does when it sees another dog is, try to sniff its butt. So, they're not super clean, and they don't wash their hands and all that sort of stuff. So, it's always kind of good to keep your distance with other pets if you don't know that they're healthy.
All right. Jeff in Nashville is a TikToker. He actually emailed me several days ago before Christmas, and was talking about this video that has been seen by over 13 million people about how to traumatize your cat so it'll stay away from your Christmas tree. Obviously, now after the holidays, people are going to be taking their tree down. But to keep your cat away from the tree, they basically push the tree into the cat, traumatize the cat would run, and it would stay away from the tree. First of all, they're saying that's not a good idea to traumatize your cat ever. And second of all, does traumatizing your cat work? Is it a disciplinary measure?
Yeah, I would definitely not condone the traumatizing the cat, because they, let's just say if they're in a certain situation or even in a certain environment, and if they get scared by something, then it's possible that they're going to develop some fearful kind of behavior patterns. So that's mainly manifest as marking or urinating or defecating outside the litter box. So if something scares them in the house, that can turn into a lifelong issue. I think a few weeks ago we talked about cats being on some sort of a psycho scale.
Yeah.
So that's something that can happen. So I would definitely not encourage that. I would tell people, if the cat's jumping on the Christmas tree, then just do what I did for the past 8 years and move the ornaments high enough up so they can't get it.
Have you ever seen the cat and the snake video where you place a rubber snake behind a cat?
Oh yeah.
Does that really happen? Do cats really freak out by snakes like that?
Oh, they freak out by anything. Snakes are definitely one of them. Yeah, for sure. But cats are, they know how to they know how to live. They know how to live for a long time. Their defense mechanisms are second to none, and they're super quick and agile, and they're resilient, man. So yeah, cats can get away from a lot of stuff.
We're doing Mutt Mail here on Darkside of the Pooch. You get it every single Monday at noon and 8 right here only on Tony Kurre Radio. He's Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, 208-0301. That's local here in Birmingham, area code 205. He'll take your pet no matter where you're listening. A catch up here, an email follow-up from Jeff. He's the one that had the 3 cats that had pooped in his shoes. He moved in with a woman. He's had all kinds of issues. He said that he has moved the litter boxes side by side, and it seems to be working. Less poop on the floor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it can make sense.
You don't think so?
Well, I think that it would just, a lot of times if it's a behavioral issue where one cat is keeping the other cat from using the litter box, like if one cat is afraid of the other cat, then actually moving them farther apart will help, or moving them into a different area of the house. But Yeah, I mean, that's just one thing that you play with when you have a cat that's going outside the box, moving the boxes around, or maybe changing the type of litter or changing the type of box. So just little things like that, a lot of times can make a big difference. But moving them close together doesn't work as often as moving them further apart. But I mean, if it's working, don't mess with a good thing.
Yeah.
Leave it where it is.
No doubt. Sally from Birmingham said if the average human being gains 7 to 8 pounds over the holidays, what do our pets gain? Do you see pet gain weight after the holidays at your office?
I wouldn't say necessarily after the holidays, but normally when pets get to early adulthood, so 2 or 3 years old, most of the time they're coming in and they're gaining anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds a year, depending on the breed. If you have a dog that's 10 pounds at its adult weight, then they're not going to gain that much. But, I'm not sure what the percentage would be. Maybe, they're gaining a few percentage points on their body weight a year. And, it's just because probably a few reasons. Their metabolism does slow down as they get older. And some dogs and cats get two different forms of thyroid issues, but dogs have thyroids that slow down. And so that causes them to gain weight. And there's some other metabolic diseases that can cause them to gain weight as they get older. Their body can make too much steroid, and that's called Cushing's disease, or even diabetes. But in dogs, diabetes can actually make them be thinner, but cats, diabetes makes them get heavier. So some of these metabolic diseases, they actually do the opposite thing to the pet. So in cats, they don't get a low thyroid, they get a high thyroid. And so they'll actually lose a lot of weight. So I'm getting a little bit off in the weeds here, but so the answer is during the holidays, I mean, unless the people are just feeding it like they feed themselves, then it's not a jump in the weight around the holidays, but it's just a jump every year. They're just getting more food, or they're getting more treats, or they're getting some kind of medical issue where they're just gaining weight.
What is the issue if you have 2 or more animals, dogs or cats, and one's fat but the other 2 are skinny? What is that all about? They're eating the same food.
Well, it can't. The first thing I would say is be sure that the one pet isn't eating all the other pets' food.
Yeah.
Half of it or whatever, because that can happen and you don't even know. And I wouldn't fault anybody for not knowing that. You wake up in the morning, you're trying to get ready for work or get the kids ready or whatever you're doing, and you put the food in the bowls, and then you go try to get ready to get out the door. And then one day maybe you find out that one of the dogs, even if it's the same breed of dog and one of them weighs, 10 or 15% more than the other one, well, it's because they're eating 20% more food. They're eating 20% of that other dog's food. So it could be that, but it could also be just the difference in genetics. If you look at even if they're eating the same food, even look at, and then we're not even talking about pets that are actually related. There's no hereditary similarities. They came from different parents. But even in the same household, they're eating the same food, but they're not the same dog. They don't have the same genetic makeup, just like our own kids. You can have one kid that is really skinny, and then you have another kid that is not so skinny. So it's just kind of part of their DNA.
If you're fat, your body's telling you need to eat 6 Big Macs, and if you don't eat 6 Big Macs, then you still think you're hungry, knowing that probably 1 Big Mac is enough. Do dogs think the same thing? In other words, if you put your dog on a diet, you start walking him, and you're cutting back maybe his food and not giving him table scraps. Will he go out when he goes out in the yard? Will he find things to eat?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely possible. But the other thing about dogs is they're just so prone to trying to eat anything, no matter if fat or skinny, or healthy or unhealthy, or whatever the case may be. So I think that
is the myth true that dogs will overeat themselves to death. I mean, if they can eat, will they just continue to eat till they get sick?
A lot of dogs will.
Yeah.
A lot of dogs will just eat the whole bag of food if you let them, and they'll eat until they make themselves sick, literally. But then there's some dogs that never have that issue, and I have one of the dogs that is the latter. I mean, we'll give him food in the morning. He may or may not eat it until the afternoon, and then he'll eat that, and then we'll feed him again in the evening, and he may or may not eat that until tomorrow, the next morning. It really is just dog dependent, I think, but you see it more in puppies. Younger dogs, they have just a really ravenous appetite, and I think most dogs, when they're less than a year old, you put the bag down, pour the whole bag on the floor, and they will eat until they are bloated and puking.
I know people that are like that. You're listening to Darkside the Pooch every single Monday exclusively here on Tony Curre Radio. Download the Tony Curre Radio app. You can listen to it whenever you want. Shows every single day of the week at noon and 8. And, of course, you can also check out Rossbridge Animal Hospital and Dr. Rab Stewart. He's there for your service there, 205-208-0301. Tina moved from Florida to Minneapolis. She's absolutely loving that area of the country. It's kind of chilly out there, but she has 3 dogs, and she's freaking out because they have a lake on their land. It's frozen over, and she's afraid they're going to fall through. She said it's too cold to walk them out every single morning. What can she do to keep her dogs refraining from walking on the lake?
Well, I guess probably the best way to do it is to maybe think about one of these underground fences, and that'd be kind of a foolproof way usually. Outside of that, some sort of other barrier. But if these fence companies, these electric fence companies are really good, and they can put just about anything anywhere. They can block off an area of your yard, or they can even put things inside your house now that can go between doors and things like that. So, that's an expense, for sure. If you didn't want to go the fence route, the other thing that you could do is get some of these collars, these electrical collars that, it's not going to cause them any harm, but you can teach a dog not to get near something if they're smart enough to learn. But you just get one of these collars, and it comes with a remote, and you can get them on Amazon, pretty much anywhere. And you'll have to spend a little time training them, but if they get close to the pond and you can just kind of give them, a little bit of a buzz, over time, they'll probably associate, hey, every time I get close to this pond, I kind of get a little buzz. So I need to, and not the good kind of buzz, I need to turn around. And over time, they'll probably learn how to do it. That's the way I would do it.
How long can a dog stay in a frozen lake? I mean, they've got a coat on, obviously, and they're not otters. They don't have that repellent type of skin condition, but can they stay in longer than human beings?
I think that they'd be able to stay in longer. I couldn't tell you how long. But I would think that they would be able to last longer than we would, just, having the fur on them, and it does kind of insulate them. But it's still not something that you would want to happen. You want to get them out.
What do you do for a hypothermic dog? Can they get, what happens there?
Warm them up. And I'll be honest with you, living down here, I don't have any experience with that at all.
Yeah.
I've treated a lot of pets that were hyperthermic.
Yeah.
I've never treated one that's hypo.
That's a good thing.
It's good, but it's kind of the same thing with people that live in the northern part of the country. There's a lot of things up there that they don't see, like heartworms.
Yeah.
They don't see a lot of heartworms, and you ask them about heartworms, and they're like, I don't really know, because it's just not here. And there's a lot of areas that in the country that don't have a lot of ticks. And so, they don't deal with it. So they don't know.
Speaking of collars, Tom in Huntsville, this is really interesting too. He put a bark collar on his dog. His dog would bark all day, every day. It would bark the minute he stepped outside. It barked at everything. So he used a bark collar, and he turned it up to 3. He said it worked extremely well, but it worked too well. Now his dog won't bark at all, even when he doesn't have a collar on. Sometimes he likes to have the sound of a bark in the house in case someone knocks on the door. He said, I feel like I've declawed my cat. He said, what should I do to get my dog to bark again?
Oh.
How do you do that? Be careful what you're wishing for, my friend. We had a bark collar on one of our dogs. And again, I always talk about it's a supplementary measure to get your animal to respond a certain way. You don't want to leave it on too long, because they'll be taught that barking is not a good thing, and sometimes barking is a good thing. What's your thoughts?
Well, this sounds kind of silly, but the first thing that you've got to do is just get the dog to bark at anything, and you've got to be around and be ready to reward him. You just have to do the opposite, of how you got the dog to not bark. Now we've got to reward him for barking, but if you do that, then you might be right back where you started. So if you have a friend that has a dog that barks a lot, maybe getting them together, because sometimes if a dog sees that behavior from a dog, they're more likely to start doing it. So I would encourage him to find a friend that has a dog that likes to bark and barks at, a lot, and then have some treats. And if his dog barks, then reward him. But, it's kind of like you said, careful what you wish for, because he might be right back to square one.
See, this is perfect, too. We're doing Darkside the Pooch here, noon and 8 every Monday here, exclusively on Tony Curre Radio and the Tony Curre Radio app. He's Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. It's the best, period. It's out there in Rossbridge, 205-208-0301, 208-0301 for all your pet care needs. My son, who's a good boy, he's 17, is a great kid when he's alone. But when he's around his friends, he does really stupid stuff. And I always tell him, I said, you do the dumbest things when you're on your friends. It probably has to play into insecurity and everything else. If a dog is well trained and it gets around dogs that aren't trained well, do they pick up bad habits?
I mean, I think they could, but we don't. I'm going by, personal experience and also our daycare. Normally a good dog is a good dog. But I will say that from like a personal, on a personal note, my dog, when he goes outside and sees our neighbor's dog, I mean, he goes nuts. Of course, if there's not another dog out there, he's not going nuts. So it could be the fact that if you have a dog that's real excitable, you put it around any dog and they're going to go nuts. Because my dog there's the one neighbor's dog, the other neighbor, it's no problem. But there's one particular neighbor, and he's got a dog, and they just go absolutely crazy. So, I think that there may be some truth to that.
We got one other ones too. You talked about humpers earlier in the show. We have barkers, we have diggers, and we have humpers. Tracy writes that she's got a male dog that will just hump about anything, and she continues to discipline it. It's a year-round situation. It's not anything that's seasonal at all. She said it's almost like her husband. He gets a lizard brain. Whenever he sees something, he can hop on board, and he just gets after it. And he does it to couches, legs, arms, and everything else. What can he do to discipline a dog to stopping humping? I've pulled him off, and he will just go at it 24 hours a day.
I
want to meet that husband.
I can't get past the husband.
Yeah.
Maybe the dog learned that from the husband.
Yeah, maybe he did. It's possible.
Man's
best friend, my friend.
No, they left the door open one night. I don't know. The dog saw it. First off is that I would ask if the dog's neutered, and then if it's not, then neutering it will stop a lot of that stuff. If it is neutered and it's still doing that, then it's a dominance thing. Most likely just trying to show everybody and everything that it's in charge. And so if that's the case, then, getting a trainer involved might be able to help with that. But neuter first and then trainer if it's already neutered.
All right, this is going to be our last show of 2021. 2022 will be coming up next Monday, and we'll be kicking it off. And I always think about New Year's resolutions. If you were putting in the mind of a dog or a cat and you had some New Year's resolutions, what would some of those resolutions be if you were a dog and cat in the world we live in right now?
Be sneakier when getting into the trash and not leave a trail of garbage, but maybe just be a little more secretive. And so maybe they won't close the door that the garbage can's in. If I just have a little tact, maybe I can just feast out of the garbage 24/7, 365.
Oh, that's great. It's funny because I have a recliner, right? Most guys have a recliner. And when the recliner goes up, my animals know that I'm down for the night, or at least I'm down for a nap. I'll be down for a half an hour, 45 minutes. So I have to keep it. So if they're in the same room with me, I know it's all good. But the minute one walks out of the room, I know they're either on the kitchen table, or I know they're snooping through the trash, or they're peeing in my hallway. Do you have the same issue? I mean, they know when they hear the recliner go up, and they know, and I'll close my eyes and I'll look out the corner of my eye and I'll see each one at a time creep out of the room. I don't know what they're doing, but I know they're up to no good. True, pretty smart, huh?
Oh yeah, for sure. And my dog's the same way. If I come home and he's in his dog bed, then I know that everything's probably fine. But this morning I had to run back to the house after I dropped my three-year-old off at daycare, and I heard him in the foyer. And then he started scrambling to get back to his bed, and I knew he had something. And sure enough, he had some of the kids' Christmas candy just diving in.
That's great. There's
Mutt.
there's nothing better than catching your dog standing on the kitchen table eating scraps, and you catch them. There's nothing better than that. And they normally won't do it for at least another 2 or 3 weeks after they get caught, but then they get pretty smart. Hey, it's been a great 2021. Great shows here on Darkside the Pooch. I want to wish you and your family a very happy and joyous 2022. Tell people how they can get in touch with you and how they can start their new year doing it right at Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Go.
Yeah, come and see us. It's 208-0301. We're obviously in Rossbridge, so that's in Hoover. You can find us on Facebook, Rossbridge Animal Hospital. We're also on Twitter as well. You can email us if you have any questions or if you need to set up an appointment. It's rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com.
You're the man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Tony. Happy New Year to you, buddy.